you, of course, is Penny Pants. And I can't believe she's how old now?
Penny is my daughter, and she just turned 9
No.
this summer, so she's 9.5. Yeah, it's crazy. I can't believe it either.
Because I remember when you were having, before she was there, And what made you want to bring her on stage with you?
It was she decided. She's just like me. She's like, I'm working on some new material. She's like, I think it's really going to smash. It's really going to. So why don't we try it out? And I'm like, okay. It wasn't my choice. Like, I'm not like some.
You're not a stage mom.
Like, her to be like, but once she's on stage, of course, I'm like, well, your delivery could be like a little different. So once she's out there, I'm like, of course, I have to help her. But I'm not like, if she's like, I'm not interested in doing this, then I'm never going to force her. Like, I'll be like, okay, have fun on the geology boat. But no, she likes to be funny. We're a lot alike for sure. She's definitely like a comedian for sure.
I think that's awesome.
And she's absolutely the cutest. I mean, just a gorgeous child. The cutest. I just adore you guys. So I've always thought you and Dina and Penny are so amazing because I ran my businesses, as you know, I've had a couple of husbands, and you two have stayed together the whole time. What are some tips for keeping your family together through being self-employed and now through this pandemic? I mean, the guys are amazing. And actually, we were meant to record last week, and Smarty had to cancel literally 5 minutes before because Dina had fallen down the stairs. Now, what a nice husband.
She's like, and I didn't want you to think that was like some excuse.
Not at all.
The podcast, my wife fell down the stairs. Sorry. I wouldn't, but I didn't want you to think that was like, no, like I heard like a boom, and then like while getting the microphone set up, and I was like, what's going on? She's like, I fell down the stairs. I'm like, can I still do the podcast? And she's like, what do you think? I'm like, all right, I'll tell Naomi I got it.
Oh my God.
Of course I understand. I feel so bad. And of course Dina's they're very different.
Yeah,
but she's better now?
Yeah, she's fine. It wasn't like, she's like a little sore, but she's not like injured. It was just like you just fall down the stairs. She's okay, fortunately.
So what are your tips, Marty, for keeping that family together? How do you make it work? And you live in the suburbs. You're another family that moved from the city to the suburbs.
And my family, we moved from the city. We live in Park Ridge now, so it's like right on the edge of. We're right on the line. But we moved to Park Ridge when Penny was a little kid because we wanted. We kept moving, like a lot of families. We kept moving apartments every few years, and it's a big hassle to have to move for whatever reason. And now that we had a kid, we're like, it would be better if we didn't have to move every 3 years. So we should find like a permanent place to live. And we ended up in Park Ridge.
And how do you keep the glue together?
How to keep the glue together? I think the first thing is a lot of people have, like, in marriages and in general, have egos, and like if they screwed up or they did something wrong, like they will deny it and dance around it and they'll ignore it. And I feel like it's usually easier to just say, I screwed up, sorry, like that was dumb to do, and just move on with it. Because sometimes the easiest way to like get out of your trouble is just to admit it and say, I screwed up. And I screw up a lot. Like, I do dumb stuff sometimes. And I admit it, and I say, I screwed up. We shouldn't, professionally, I say, we should not have done that event. It was a bad choice, and I will try not to book that kind of event in the future because it is not right for us. Things like that. Personally, it's like, that's a professional issue that we would get into, that I would say, I'm sorry. You were right and I was wrong. So right there, and she's the same. If she screws up, she'll say, I'm sorry. I think that kind of like willing to like subsume your ego to apologize and own up to what you've done wrong is like 50% of it right off the bat.
And Dina performs with you, correct?
She does. So we originally just got started doing like, I was doing balloons and people would ask like, hey, you have a face painter? And she's like an artist. She's like has a lot of artistic talent. So face painting was like not that big a deal. She's like, I can paint on kids' faces, no problem. So we started out as kind of like a duo, just because people were asking for it. And then when I got into more doing a balloon show, it's hard to do a show by yourself. It's hard to like wear the pants while you're washing them, so to speak. So I kind of asked her to help me with the show, a lot of behind the scenes things, and then of course she became front of the scenes. And then I said, well, there's lots of great material in like a husband and wife duo, and like interaction, so why don't you be in the show? So now she's in the show, and that's kind of how it happened. I fell into show business, and then once I was already in the well, I said, hey, come on in, and she jumped in there after me.
No, I think that's
how it happened.
awesome, and I definitely agree with your comment that you made about there's been many times where myself and another salesperson, and I'm like, no, that's not the right client for us, and they've argued, and I'm like, fine, I'll tell you, I told you so at the end. Been in that position. Really seriously, we need to connect because I need you to do my events. My clients, my corporate clients would love this. They're always asking me, what's the next big thing? And although you've been around for, 14 years just in Chicago or whatever it is, I can't believe I've never had you in the space where I work, and I keep wanting to say the name of it.
I can't believe you've never heard of him either.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, I'm always getting asked what's the next big thing, and like last year my big thing was this, well, not last year because we didn't do events, 2019, was this electric violin quartet that did dancing on the stage while they played the violin. They were amazing women.
I've seen them before.
They weren't from Chicago, they brought them in. But anyways, my point is, I need you to be working at my events.
They're playing electric violin, and they walk around and stuff, and they do like, and there's one woman who's kind of the leader, and she's blonde, and she has 3 other women. Is that what you're talking about?
Something like that. It was like 2 years ago.
I saw them at First Night Evanston, and we were like one of like 8 people who were there, and I remember seeing them.
Yeah.
And I was very sad that there was only 8 people to witness.
They're amazing.
And that's another thing about Smarty. He is so respectful at events to other artists. And him and Dina, and actually, do you know what he does pre-pandemic? Is he brings this like orphan Christmas Eve. We go to a Cantonese or Mandarin restaurant. Smart.
It's the House of Wasan, yes, and it's a very old school Chinese restaurant in Lincoln Square. It's been there forever, yes.
So he organizes like a orphan Christmas Eve night, and he brings like, myself, Mikey went, and some face painters from Montana, I think, and then Miss Jamie, the country. He brings other artists. And it was really nice. And then the pandemic, of course, nobody goes anywhere. Ever.
And speaking of the face painting, does Dina ever work by herself, without you and Penny?
So as our kind of career progressed, to be honest, the show became more of our interests.
Cool.
And even when I'm making balloons at an event, like at a museum or a party, I still bring like a theatrical quality to it. I make the balloons, but I try and make them in a really fun way. It's an interesting visual spectacle watching me make the balloons. It's not a formal show like I would do on a stage, but it's still a visual interest. Face painting was never really her passion.
Got it.
She because people asked for it. And as the years progressed, and she said, you can only do so many things in your life. There's other face painters in Chicago that are very talented and much more into face painting. I'm going to take a step back from face painting, and I won't mind if you work with other face painters. The show is really what's special for us, but the face painting was always just something that I just did as your kind of partner. So she's kind of really taken a step back from face painting, to be honest with you.
No, I was just curious. So do you think we're going to have events in 2021?
Oh, boy. It's hard to speculate because originally I was told that this was going to be an extra week of spring break. So, that's what I was told, was every kid is getting an extra week of spring break, and we'll be done by Easter. That's what I was told. So it's hard for me to speculate. I try not to be falsely optimistic with this, just because it's never ended well. So when are we going to get back to live events? I don't know. Who knows? Nobody knows. Anyone who says they know is not being truthful.
Well, I will say this. I have a planner that is still holding on hope that her bride is going to get married on April 24th, come hell or high water, in 2.5 months.
No, not happening.
But she's like, so we just reopened to 25 people, right? And she's like, her count was 200. She's like, well, she'll settle for 50. I'm like, how do you go from 200 to 50 people? So, hey, I'd love to have the business. We gave back so much money last year because we were nice about it.
Yes, let's talk about that. I know with my business closing it, I had to refund. Luckily, it was my third location and we just opened, so we didn't have enough revenue in there to have to refund. But Smarty, if you don't mind me asking, what happened to your future events and how did you handle that?
Oh boy, like most entertainers, I would say like March 26 was like the worst day of my life.
Worst day ever?
March 26th is probably like, or like April 4th. That's like a horrible days for like entertainers. What happened? What happened to me is what happened to like probably most people in this business. All my private parties were not happening, and they wanted their deposit back. And I wasn't in the position to say, I wasn't going to be that guy that was going to give them a hard time. I certainly understood. It wasn't like they just decided not to have their party and they want their money back. This is like a worldwide pandemic. So I had to eat it, and I had to hand back their deposits. And I made it very quick. I gave them their deposits back very quickly because I felt like the longer it dragged on, the worse feelings were going to be around. So I just gave my deposits back right away. I didn't make it difficult for the people, and I don't think anyone wanted their deposit back because they were being malicious. I think they just were upset that their event wasn't happening, and they didn't want to pay their deposit. So that was that. That was for private events. And then, fortunately, for public events, and when I say public events, library shows, we do lots of shows in public libraries, and I kind of said, why don't we hold off, and if it turns out that you'll be using a virtual show, like a virtual show on Zoom would work for you, let's convert our live show booking to a Zoom booking. And a lot of libraries, I think a lot of librarians really felt bad because a lot of performers that they knew were having a hard time, so they really went the extra mile to really say, if we can get you on a virtual show, we will do it. And a lot of librarians really came through. I was really appreciative how they kind of really had my back converting the live show to a virtual show.
I think that with the individuals giving the money back, I've heard so many horror stories from my clients that like, thank you so much for giving me my deposit back because my band, my decor, my photographer, whatever, they refused to give me my deposit. And on the one side, I understand because they're like they're independent business people.
But he gave his back.
No, and that's what I'm saying but my point I'm getting to is it's a smart move because
I think it's really
you know
smart,
what? Every single person, every single client I had was like, I'm going, like, thank you, I appreciate that. My office does a corporate party every year. I'm going to recommend they use you. Or I'm going to come back and we're going to do an anniversary party here later. It just creates goodwill. So it's like, this ex-DJ won't give me money back, but Smarty did, and now I want you to rehire him. And not only that, I want you to take it beyond the other step and recommend him to other people. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's smart. It sucks. Can we swear on this?
Swearing non-stop. It was amazing that you did it. But I'm not surprised. You're such a good business person.
It wasn't unusual. This is the way we've always run our business. I try to do right by people. And sometimes, I learned this the hard way. Sometimes you can be right in like a disagreement, but you end up being wrong because the person's upset that you were right and they were wrong and you did. I don't know if I'm being clear with what I'm saying. Sometimes you can win the argument but lose the war. Like, technically, my contract says I get to keep the deposit. So I keep the deposit, but now you hate me, and you're going to, like, leave me bad reviews online. Like, I think I lost that battle, even though I kept your deposit. So that always seemed like a very, like, bad way to run your business. Like, try to make people happy, even if that means you have to, like, maybe not do what you think is the right solution, but if you can make people happy, then why not do that instead?
So, Smarty, let's tell me, what do you tell everyone, or hopefully thousands of our listeners, this is our inaugural
podcast.
And I'm so excited. Tell what's going on. Can they still book you for an event, and how's that going?
Yeah, so I do. So, like, I hate the word pivot. Like, it was like, you have to pivot. I'm like,
no, you didn't.
Word is giving, like, I don't like it just seemed like such a buzzword that, like, the pandemic people came up, like, 3 weeks later. They're like, everyone's going to be pivoting now. So you make sure to get that pivot on your website. But theoretically, that's really what we all did. So I do 2 different things. So instead, I can't do live shows, so I've been doing virtual shows on Zoom. So I knew more about Zoom now than I ever would have dreamed that I would have in February of 2020. 2020, I'm like, I don't know what Zoom is. Now I'm like, I can answer any question. So I do public shows on Zoom for libraries have been really good about getting Zoom shows booked. So I do about 2 shows a month for libraries. And then I do private parties. Birthday parties are the most popular, where kids are at home. They're I'm a parent. Their kid is upset because they can't have a party. Well, everyone hops on Zoom, and I entertain all the kids on Zoom.
Wait, you're doing the parties on Zoom, Smart?
People are doing. Kids are.
No, you are, because people are having parties, and I noticed that you put on Facebook the other day that someone literally begged you to come and do a 100-person event, and you turned it down. That's how professional you are.
Well, I will comment on that. I'm not the pandemic police. If other people are doing other things,